we're not gonna do a straw test. Really gotta work for cleavage when you're a B-cut. Welcome back. Today I'm gonna be talking about the books I read in the month of January. I come to you wearing yellow with blonde hair because someone not so kindly suggested that you can't wear yellow when you're blonde. So I aim to disprove. All right. So I have a list of the books I read, and we're gonna go through it one at a time. I'm going to briefly talk about what I rated it. I'm not super big on rating books, but I have had a couple of people ask me. I don't really use Goodreads, but I figured enough people asked for it that it is worth attempting to rate on a scale. So, the first book I read in the month of January was Anne of Green Gables. I rated this a 3 out of 5 stars. While reading it, if you're unsure what it's about, it is about a young orphan named Anne who is adopted by a brother and sister and raised in a lovely village in PEI, which is Eastern Canada. It was really cute. It was charming. I understand why so many people like it and love it. That being said, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I didn't think it did anything like that groundbreaking. I don't know if for its time, maybe it was like a little bit more, there's something I could be missing, but how I felt about it, it was a solid 3. I enjoyed it. I thought it was super cute. Anne, as a young girl, was my absolute favorite. She is so funny. The kind of tangents she would go on, I thought were hilarious. So therefore, she got a 3. Next, I read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, and I rated this a 3.5. So I struggled to rate Sarah J. Maas anything like over a 4. So understanding that and the weird scale that I kind of do on a whim and go by, a 3.5 is a good thing. Book 4 almost had me doubting that I would continue the series whatsoever. I thought it was sluggish, boring, too long of a training sequence, but finally for Queen of Shadows, we got to see a lot of what we struggled through with book 4 pay off, and it was just a lot of fun. So 3.5, solid book. I'm actually excited to read Empire of Storms, which I'm hoping to start tomorrow. So that is where that lands. Pretty happy with this read. It has gotten me back on board the Throne of Glass series hype train. Next, I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. This is book 2 in the Wayward Children series. So I rated this a 5 out of 5. Just like book 1, I had a great time reading this. If you're unsure what it's about, these are all sort of standalone stories, so you really can read them in any order, but they're all intertwined. We see reoccurring characters or reoccurring themes, as well as reoccurring themes within certain characters. I have had such a great time. It's kind of, with each book, we are following one or more wayward children, so young adults, on the precipice of adulthood as they try and find their way back or struggle to come to terms with the fact that many of them had gone through a door that led them into a different world, all of the worlds being a wide range of what we would think of as fantastical or fairy tale like. Some of them full of horror, some of them full of whimsical sort of ideas. And the Wayward Children series takes place at a school in which a woman is housing all of these children as they come back into reality in the world that we know and try and struggle with the fact that they have to readapt. A lot of these children are looking for a way back into their world, and in this book we follow Jack and Jill in their world of horror, and it was a lot of fun. It was really, really cool. We know Jack and Jill from the first book, and we meet Jack and Jill in book 1 once they have returned into the world that we know. So in Down Among the Sticks and Bones, we got to meet them in the world, the wayward world that they had adapted to. And it was so good. Next, I read A Man Called Ove, or Ovi, by Frederick Bachman. I rated this a 5 out of 5. I had such a great reading month with this book. Frederick Bachman really surprised me with his ability to balance controversial statements that Ove was making and how he was able to build up this likability within him, basically not through his actions, but through his internal dialogue of what Ove was thinking and going through at any given time. And it was so sweet and impactful. I cried at the very end. I have heard that this is being adapted into a movie or series. I'm not sure which, and Tom Hanks will be starring in it. I will say I had a very distinctive idea of what Ove looked like in my head, and Tom Hanks doesn't quite fit that. Bachman did such a great job of building up this character that we come to love and adore that it was hard not to get a very crystal clear picture of what I imagined him. So I might struggle a little bit wrapping my mind around Tom Hanks playing O, but I am here for it. I thought it was such a beautiful story. We are following a grumpy old man as he muses about all the things he dislikes in modern day society, and seemingly the only thing he ever loved was his wife, who has since passed. And it is just gorgeously done as we follow him finding love and happiness and a purpose again, and it's just very beautiful. Next, I read Valentine by Elizabeth Westmore, and this is an interesting one because this was a DNF. I made it to about 50 pages until it ended, and I just thought, do you know what? I gave it a good fair chance. I literally have almost finished you, and it just was not the book for me. I thought the beginning was really interesting. I flew through the first 40 pages, but after that, I thought the story was quite stagnant. I think this would have worked really well as a novella, as I don't know if this is a debut or if she has other works. Let me have a quick look. I don't see anything else. So if it's a debut, I do think there's leniency there, but the plot was meandering and not in a very good way. I think it lost a lot of purpose towards the middle and struggled to find its way back to where the author wanted to go. And I just think a lot of time was spent where it was maybe not the most necessary, which led to me not really... They tackle a subject that is so heavy that I think every chapter you have to, or close to every chapter, there has to be purpose in what you're writing, because by the end, I just found myself really depressed and without purpose and kind of wondering why I was reading this. And like, that's the 2020 vibe. That's not the vibe we're going for this year. So I DNF'd it. I said, see you later, sister, and you're gonna get donated. Okay, I can only hold up book 2 of this because I have lent book 1 out to a couple of girlfriends, and it's gonna be making its round for a couple of months, I think. So next on the list, I read From Blood and Ash and Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I had such a great time with these. I rated both of these 4 stars. If you are a fan of Sarah J. Maas, but like make it more adult and way more sex scenes, then this is the book for you, because I had a great time with these. So we are following a young woman named Poppy as she is a maiden in this fantastical society, and what it means to be a maiden is to basically uphold all moral values that this society shows as necessary. So she can't be touched by a man, she can't really lose her temper, she's very like subservient when we meet her, but she's living kind of a dual life, and we come to understand that she's very well trained in fighting, she is very temperamental and hot-tempered and all of those great things, and through her escapades that she goes on at night, we meet the male protagonist Hawk, who is her love interest, and basically chaos ensues. So she is battling between whether she can give herself to someone and what it means to be a maiden. Is it the right thing? Does she have a choice in it whatsoever? She is living with a group called the Ascenders, which we come to know as vampires, and they are beheld within the society, looked at very, very highly, and they're sort of the compass of morality. And then book 2 continues along with her adventure. So it is a werewolf v vampire sort of story, but it is just a lot of fun. And if you like Sarah J. Maas, if you like those kind of stories, then honestly, I couldn't recommend this enough. I finished book 1, immediately bought book 2 on the ebook and read through it. I read them both in about 2.5 or 3 days. And That's nothing to snuff a nose at. They're both quite hefty, but I have lent out From Blood and Ash to a couple of my girlfriends, and I'm thinking of doing a reread of book 2 before I lend that out to follow, so would recommend. One of my favorite reads this month. Next, I read No One Asked for This by Cassie David, which is a debut of personal essays by a young woman. I wound up rating it 3.5 out of 5, just because with personal essays, there has to be a little more meat on the bone for me to rate it higher than that. I do have a 5-star that is like an essay in here, but this by no means was a bad read. It was funny and a very good job for a debut. Next, I read The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. This was one I picked up on a whim because I had heard so much about the Netflix adaptation that I really wanted to read the book before delving into that, and the book did not disappoint. So we follow a young woman who is orphaned, and through this orphanage she learns how to play chess with the school's sort of janitor, and I'm interested to see how they pitch this on the back. I never read the back, actually. She grows very obsessive with the game of chess and becomes a young prodigy and the best chess player of her time. But what it really is sort of a character portrayal and a character piece on obsession and dark thoughts and addiction, and what does that look like even when you're successful. And it was, for a book about chess, I was almost really taken aback of how impactful I thought it was. I thought it did a great job portraying what it needed to, not shying away from some of the grittier details, and it was just fantastic writing. So I rated this a 4 out of 5. It was really great. I probably will reread this actually after I watch the show, just so I can compare and contrast a little bit, but I've heard really great things about the show, even from some people at work who have read this. All right, and next I read Whites on Race and Other Falsehoods, which is my 5-star read of the month and definitely my top read in terms of what I took away for the month of January. So to give a little bit of a quick synopsis of what this tackles still Black issues, much like their original essay. If you haven't read Little Black Book, I would really encourage it. I still think about it to this day. With this piece of work, they delve more into Black struggles, but where along the way, even well-intentioned, are we falling short? And we as a society, it really encompasses that. And I spoke a little bit about it on my vlog, but I will say the most heart-wrenching thing I took away from this was understanding, even when you're trying to be an ally, how you can really be doing disservice to a community. And by that, the biggest lesson I took away was how what we're sharing matters, and how we're participating in allyship matters. And they talk a lot about the Black perspective, how it is always looked on with a white lens, and Black struggles looked on with a white lens. How is it impacting the white community? What is the white community doing for Black people? What does the white community think of a young or old Black man being shot in the street or killed in the street? What does the white community think of that? And at the end of the day, it's kind of shining a lens on that and saying, well, what does it matter? And it was just really beautiful and really heartbreaking. So if you haven't read it, it is a very quick read. It's a very quick read, but it is something that I think will be reaching for again and again as we near the anniversary of George Floyd, and understanding that it's not one death, it's many deaths, and it's a trend, and it shouldn't just be something that is taken seriously when there is a spotlight turned on it and it's not a fad. So really great. Honestly, if you need, I will buy you a copy and send it. It was fantastic. Next, I read Lore by Alexandra Bracken. So this is a young adult No, well, I don't know if there's much of a difference, but it is a young adult teen novel about Grecian gods. Once every 7 years for 7 days, humans can take the power of old Grecian gods, and if you kill the ancient god, you can take their power and you will then become immortal after the 7 days if you are not killed. So we follow a young woman who has left that world and left that life. She's living with mortals now due to the fact that her family was killed 7 years prior. And she is reintroduced and reinserted into this world as her best friend comes back into her life and needs her help. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was so interesting and so well done. Like, I will say the only reason it didn't really get a 5-star for a YA for me was personally just because the pacing was like a little bit strange, but my understanding is this is a debut book and it looks like something that is going to be ironed out pretty easily in the books to come. I'm really excited to continue this series. I do believe it is going to continue and it is not a standalone is my understanding. I did try and check it before this video, but I can't really see anything to that, but I have been told that. So here's hoping, because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so we are following this young heroine as she has to team up with some of the more ancient gods and her best friend who has newly become a god to save lives and get to the bottom of some mysteries that might even sort of unfurl the mystery behind her parents' and young sister's death. So would recommend if you're looking for a I would recommend if you're looking for a really good adventure-like story for teen. Next, I read Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Surprised no one, I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I think this makes 4 out of 5 books that I've read by him, or 3 out of 4 books that I've read by him, a 5-star. I had a lot of fun with this. This is about a bank robbery that goes very, very wrong with a group of hostages, but not necessarily in the way you would think it would go. It was really funny. I was laughing out loud a couple of times. The dialogue, though very contrived, is very purposeful and funny. You could tell Bachman knew exactly what he was doing when he was writing this. It read a lot more like a play, kind of like The Truth About Being Earnest. What is that one? Really clever. I saw it in university. I can't remember what it's called now, but it was quite like that. Like, it was very purposeful, the dialogue, very contrived, but very fun. It got like a little too mushy at the end for me, but like I also kind of don't mind. So if you are a fan of Bachman, this does not disappoint and you should definitely pick this up. Next, I read Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna McGuire, book 3 in the Wayward Children series, and again, I had a great time. It was a 5-star. I feel like I'm just getting repetitive at this point. I finished this one and immediately bought the next 3 in the series because book 6 just came out. I had no idea. I went to pick up book 4 and 5 hoping it wouldn't be too much longer for book 6, and there it was sitting on the shelf. Couldn't be happier. So again, I kind of just gave a synopsis of what this series is about, so I won't go on too much about it, but we do follow the daughter of one of the characters from book 1, and I won't give away too much about that, but it's a lot of fun. Pick it up if it sounds like your thing. A dark, twisted fairy tale for adults. Would recommend. And last but least, no, I'm joking, it wasn't the least, but I read Graceling by Kristen Cashore. Kristen Cashore. Anyways, I read Graceling. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was fun. I thought it was definitely of its time. It was cute. We are following a young girl who is graced with the power of fighting and maybe some other abilities, but basically to be graced means you are a Graceling and you have above average potential for something. It's different with everyone, and every grace looks different to each person. And we are following Katza, who is basically the rabid dog of a tyrant king, as he gets her to be the muscle for the kingdom and threaten people, get what he wants, all of that. But Katza also kind of doubles as her own moral compass. So on her off time, she is doing things to better the people and better the kingdom and save people. So it's super interesting. She then meets a fellow Graceling called Poe, who is from another kingdom. Not the best name, we're gonna move on. And he kind of opens her eyes to her ability to make choices in her own life, and it's not all up to the king, and ultimately she is responsible for the choices she is making. So it was cute, it was great. If you liked Ella Enchanted, I think I said in my reading vlog, I think this will be right up your alley and you'll have a really, really good time with this. I'm going to continue in the series. I have book 1 and 4 because that's what was available at my work at the time, but I am definitely going to wait and read them all in order, because already I know the story in which book 4 revolves around is Bitter Blue, who we're introduced to in book 1. So even though I know you can read them as standalones, because of the way in which the characters intertwine, I think I'm gonna read them in order. So Winterkeep will just stay on my shelf a little longer, and I will wait for book 2 to become available, as it is currently out of stock. So that is it for what I read in the month of January. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week and or weekend whenever I post this. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you're staying safe and staying happy.